What's going on YouTube? Today I bring you my Week 16 predictions for the 2021 NFL season. Last week we went a good 11-5 on our predictions, so I'm really still hoping I can get to that 2-to-1 ratio before the end of the season. But we'll see. We're currently standing at 140, 83-1, so I think it is still attainable, but I guess we will see. So starting off with our Thursday night football game, we have the Niners, who are on a good streak right now. Obviously winning, like six of their last seven or something like that. Great streak, obviously. And they kept it up against the Falcons. They had a great game. Jimmy Garoppolo is playing probably the best ball of his life right now, and it makes you wonder. They did say that they are going to trade him this offseason, and if he goes and he leads you to maybe even a playoff run, are you really wanting to do that? I think that is interesting for the Niners there. And with the Titans, they've been a little bit less hot recently, having some bad losses recently. Obviously getting Julio back, AJ Brown back is great for them. Ryan Tannehill has some nice weapons now. Derrick Henry back for the playoffs obviously is going to be a great help. Their offensive line is pretty injured right now, and their defense, they've been great. They've had some good contributors. Jeffrey Simmons has been great. Harold Landry been great. But with their offensive line being so hurt, AJ Brown and Julio back is nice, but they're still obviously going to be dealing a little bit with their injuries. And just with the way that they've played recently compared to the Niners, one team has just been really struggling while the other has been just lighting it up. And on defense, too. Nick Bosa's been amazing, too, recently. So with the Niners, I just think they've got more momentum going for them. I think they're fighting for more being in the division that they are. So I will have the Niners pulling this one off. Then moving on to our Saturday night football, we have the Browns in Green Bay, and I don't think this will be a particularly close matchup. Browns, they've just struggled a lot this year. Really unfortunate because I thought they were going to be pretty good, but they've just not been that good. They've had their solid games. They're a team that just week to week, they're a different team, really. And last week against the Raiders, I get it. COVID sucked, right? Like it causes issues. But now you're on a short week. Even if you're getting guys back and stuff, you're not going to beat the Packers, who have just been rolling. Keep in mind that they've had a lot of great players out this year. And the fact that they're 11-3, in my opinion, I think Aaron Rodgers is the MVP right now. I think that team is just really, really good. Maybe the best team in football right now. So I think the Packers pull this one out pretty easily on Saturday night. Actually, it would be Saturday day. Saturday night football, we have the Colts in Arizona. Two teams that maybe I, didn't give enough credit to. Cardinals, I definitely did not give enough credit to. Colts, I think for a while there were right on pace with what I thought they would be, but they've really, really started to play great football. For a while I was talking about the fact that Carson Wentz, in my opinion, still played a lot of rookie-like ball. He still made a lot of dumb mistakes constantly and then a lot of stuff like that. And I think part of the reason why he's been able to make less of those mistakes is because he's definitely being relied on way less when you have Jonathan Taylor playing the way he is right now. Jonathan Taylor's been incredible, quite frankly, and I don't think there's any way around that. Michael Pittman has a great nice year. A great nice breakout year, really. So he's been a nice contributor for them, and the offensive line has still been solid even with the injuries. The point in case of this team really comes to Frank Reich and the defense, because the defense has been elite this year. Kenny Moore has been fantastic. DeForest Buckner, as always, has been great. Darius Leonard, 5 forced fumbles this year. Might have gone up since then, actually. He's just been amazing. And so I think the glue of it all together is Frank Reich, who's just an incredible coach. In my opinion, he's probably a top 5 head coach right now and really does have a legit argument for number 1. Frank Reich is truly that good of a head coach. So, you're facing the Cardinals here Saturday night. And the Cardinals, they've not looked too good in the past couple weeks. Drops now to the Rams, which is understandable. Division, tough game. And then to the Lions. And it wasn't even the fact that the Cardinals, it wasn't the fact that the Lions had a good game by their standards, but the Cardinals looked bad. And that's worrying because when a team like the Lions, which all respect to them, I mean, they play with heart. Dan Campbell's a good coach. They do have some talent on that team. When Jared Goff is dominating your defense that badly with no weapons, because keep in mind, I don't think he even had TJ Hawkinson, there's an issue there. And this just happens with teams sometimes where teams expose you and they show how to beat you. And I think that there's been a few different games this year where you had some teams that started out hot, but there was a dominant win a team had over another, and it really gave the NFL the blueprints, for how to beat that team. And the Colts, they're getting hot at the exact perfect time to where, I mean, if anyone does figure out how they're doing stuff right now and how they're winning, it's not going to be until the playoffs. Whereas with the Cardinals, they've been so great this year, but it seems like the Rams really figured that out. The Lions, used a similar system and it worked. They beat them. And so when you have the Colts, who have a masterful head coach and a much more talented team, in my opinion, who's been way more hot recently, I'm gonna pick the Colts on the upset here. In Arizona, I get it, but the Colts, they've just been good, and nobody's figured them out so far. And the Cardinals look like they've been figured out. So I do have the Colts pulling out the upset here in Arizona. Then we have quite the stinker with the Lions in Atlanta. Atlanta is favored here, and it's actually going to be my betting game of the week because I think this is one of those upset games where I just feel pretty confident in it. I was really confident in Houston over Jacksonville last week, and that's what happened. This is another one where I just kind of feel confident. Like, yeah, Falcons can definitely pull out this game. But with the way that the Lions just played against the Cardinals, I think they did show that there is some good talent on this team, especially guys like Jared Goff. Like, they've got stuff in them. They just need to show it more consistently. The coaches need to become more consistent. You do all that, and you have yourself a solid team. Now you just need to build around it. Maybe they triggered that. Maybe they found what works for them. And against the Falcons, which just aren't the best team in the world, they got a little hot there in the middle of the season, but have cooled down since. I think, the Lions, they got a lot going for them right now. They're trying to find their own way for the future and stuff. So I think the Lions will be able to pull out a win. And not a good game, but, I think they'll pull out a win here in Atlanta. Then we have the Rams in Minnesota, and the Rams have looked great the last couple weeks. Obviously, the win over the Cardinals is a great one. I mean, for obvious reasons. I mean, division opponent, they were number one. They were number one, in your division. Still are technically, but you're tied with them now at 10-4, and then after that, you go and, yeah, not the best game against Seattle, but again, a tough divisional opponent. It's still a win. So just a couple of great games back to back here from the Rams. And of course, I mean, even before that, they put up good competitions against the Packers, and beat the Jaguars pretty easily. So yeah, Rams, I mean, they're just rolling right now. They've got a lot going for Matthew Stafford's back to that high level play. Cooper Kupp on pace for breaking Randy Moss's record. Donald, Ramsey looking great. I mean, they're just going on all cylinders right now. And against the Vikings, I think the Vikings can put up somewhat of a fight. I think they could make this into more of like a one-score game. I just think the Rams are a much better team. Vikings have just been disappointing this year. I don't know if they make the playoffs at this point. I mean, there's some great players on this team. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback, and I'm tired of the Kirk Cousins slander. Justin Jefferson, quite literally, I mean, he's had an insane start to his career. He's up there with the likes of like Randy Moss with how quickly and great his career started off. And that's great having going forward. But Mike Zimmer is he's never going to let this team have anything nice. And if I'm looking at it, I mean, maybe the Vikings will make it close. Mike Zimmer's going to find some way to screw it up, even if they do make it a close game. So either way, I have the Rams pretty comfortably here. I have them by 2 scores, though. Then moving on, we have not a very good game again with the Jaguars in New York. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't taking Jacksonville against Houston last week because I didn't think that, Darrell Bevell could be as bad as Urban Meyer, but an interim head coach on a very short week like that, I did not expect to win. They looked pretty bad. I don't know if they look any better against the Jets, to be honest. I don't know. Is it still an interim coach on really his first week as an interim, technically? First full week at least. I don't think that the change of Urban Meyer is going to spark anything this season. I think going forward, you got to get a right head coach, obviously, and find that right guy. I mean, yeah, Jaguars, they're the number 1 pick again. this year. I mean, that just really shows how awful that they've still been. I just don't think, Urban Meyer being gone is kind of like, yeah, it's great, obviously, but it's not going to spark anything new. Whereas with the Jets, they looked pretty good against the Dolphins last week, which was great because, they were a team that I kept saying, like, I feel like they could get a bit more hot maybe towards the end of the season. And I guess against a good divisional opponent like the Dolphins last week, that's a good game to have, even if you lose in the end, because obviously the Jets aren't going to do anything this year. But against a team like the Jaguars, I think it's a good game to, again, just get some experience and get some good play in. Zach Wilson looked good last week, and I think the Jaguars defense is much worse than the Dolphins. So, maybe he has another good game, and maybe they win by a lot more than this. Either way, I think the Jets win this one. I don't think the Jaguars win it either way. I think it'll be a bit more of a close game, but I do have the Jets pulling it out. Then we have the Giants in Philadelphia, and again, similar case. I think the Giants can make this a close game. Their defense is still good. Offense has been solid at points. I think they'll make it a close game just because it's a divisional game. You're still obviously that division has a lot of hatred for each other, so you're still going to try to knock Philly out of the playoffs if you can. But for me, Philly's just been too good. Definitely one of the big misses on my part. I just didn't think this team would be able to pull a lot of the talent that they do have together this year, but they really have. Gardner Minshew looked great. And, to be honest, I think he gets traded in the offseason. I do think the Eagles like Jalen Hurts, but Gardner, still a great quarterback, though. And just a lot of talent across the team, especially on defense, got a lot of good talent. And yeah, I mean, it's just been a team that, no, I don't think they're going to, make a Super Bowl run or anything this year. Might not even make the playoffs, but they are a good, talented team with a bright future ahead. Nick Sirianni does actually look like a pretty good coach, and that's a happy surprise. So, yeah, Eagles, they got stuff going for them right now. I think they pull off another win here in New York, against New York in Philly. Yeah, again, just it'll be a solid win. Nothing special, but Eagles get a win. Then we have. I was considering putting this my game of the week, but I didn't want to do the exact same matchup as my game of the week just a few weeks later. This is still going to be a great game. Bills and Patriots. I honestly was debating on just who could pull out this game because Bills, I mean, they've been really good since that loss against the Patriots, and the Patriots, they've not been as good as they were a couple weeks ago. So one team's got a bit more momentum going for them. Also, of course, if you're the Bills, you're looking to get revenge here, obviously. And you're looking to take back that division because I think if they beat the Patriots, they go back to number one in the division. That's great. It's just the fact that these teams, I mean, they're so closely matched in a lot of criteria. The Bills have definitely been worse in a lot of areas, in my opinion, but they've been good still overall, and I think they'll make this a great game. And I kept going back and forth. I really didn't know how to pick, and you know how I actually chose? I flipped a coin, and that coin went in favor of the Patriots. So I did give the Patriots the edge by a point in a very good, competitive, close game. It could go either way. It really could. I have the Patriots pulling this one out though, and really taking hold of that division for good. Then we have my actual game of the week, and that is going to be the Ravens in Cincinnati. And these teams are fighting for the AFC North crown right now. Ravens have actually not been that bad in the past 3-4 weeks. But they've lost some bad games, and honestly, mainly I blame John Harbaugh because all three of these last games, they lost by a point or two. And you could have won those games if he just made some smarter decisions. I mean, this team was 8-3. They could be, 11-3 right now. Instead, they're 8-6 because Harbaugh has just made some very dumb decisions. And you're coming now here to Cincinnati, where you're 8-6 now, and you're all of a sudden going to be fighting for a wild card spot, most likely, if you lose this game. This is an important game, but at the same time, if you're the Bengals, discounting last week, they've been pretty good recently. And in my opinion, I think that the Broncos defense is better than the Ravens. So I think the offense is definitely going to be able to get more stuff going here. If you look at the Ravens offense versus the Bengals defense, yeah, Tyler Huntley's been lighting it up, but at the same time, Bengals have a good defense, and I think they're going to find a way to be able to slow them down enough to where I got the Bengals pulling this one out in a very good game. Again, it's my game of the week for a reason, and I think the Bengals take the step forward into that AFC North crown this year, and hopefully they can hold on, but I got the Bengals taking the lead, though. Then we have the Chargers in Houston for what's not going to be a close game at all. Let's just be honest. Chargers, they've had their struggles this year, but I mean, they've been pretty good on both sides of the ball. Texans, yeah, they've gotten a few good wins. They're the Texans. They're not winning this game. I don't need to talk about much. I mean, yeah, I just really don't need to talk about much. It's going to be a blowout. Then we have the Buccaneers in Carolina, and I think the Panthers could make this a close game. Maybe it's a bit more competitive than this, but especially on offense, they've just struggled. Joe Brady, I mean, was so bad he got fired. Cam Newton had a solid first week back, and then he's just been horrible since. Sam Darnold supposedly going to play a little bit. He's been god awful this year too. And because of that, their offensive weapons have really struggled, besides the fact that Christian McCaffrey is injury prone and the fact that their offensive line sucks, besides the fact that Matt Rule is not actually that good of a coach. Their defense is cool. Their defense is really good and all. That's not beating the Buccaneers. So I will have the Buccaneers advancing to 11-4 here, and the Panthers falling to an even worse record at 5-10 after starting off 3-0. Then we have Chicago in Seattle for our first NFL afternoon game, unless the Buccaneers-Panthers was an afternoon game, but I don't think they were. And with the Bears here, yeah, they just don't have much going for them right now, and neither does Seattle, obviously. I mean, neither one of these teams are fighting for anything. The Seahawks are not making the playoffs. The Bears are not making the playoffs. It was a pretty poor performance against the Vikings last week. Justin Fields, he's been playing a bit better recently, but he's still been struggling with just not help on that offense. And if you look at the Seahawks, I mean, they've just been so up and down. Just could not win anything without Russell Wilson, and he's looked a bit better recently, but they've just struggled. You got to win against the Texans, whoopee, but otherwise, a fine win against the Niners, but you lost to Washington, you lost to the Cardinals, you lost to the Rams. So you have two teams that's just not really playing for anything here. At the end of the day, I still think that the Seahawks are the more talented team on offense for sure. Defense, I think their defense has stepped it up a little bit recently, but Bears' defense is still definitely better. It's just when it comes to the two offenses, it's not even close to the Seahawks are just a much better offense. So in not the best game in the world, I'm going to have the Seahawks winning it. Maybe Matt Nagy gets fired after this game. I think this could be the game that Matt Nagy gets fired over because, Seahawks, they've not been a very good team this year. And especially if you lose by a lot, there's a new rule that, after week 16, you're able to, start interviewing head coaches. So maybe the Bears fire Nagy after this game. We'll see. I don't know if it'll happen. Either way, though, I have Seattle pulling this one out. Then we have the Broncos in Las Vegas, and the Broncos just keep finding ways to disappoint me. I mean, I swear, it's just they never win when I pick them to win, and it's almost like they never lose when I pick them to lose either. Yeah, I mean, and then the Raiders, they've been bad recently. So you got two AFC West teams here, 7-7. The reason why I'm picking Denver in this game is because I think they are a better team than the Raiders right now. Their defense is certainly better, and their offense can be on par on the good weeks. Now, Drew Lock is starting, and that should be a pretty, Drew Lock starting, they're probably going to lose it. And yeah, to be fair, probably. But the thing that Denver's really established this year is that they also have a very, very good ground game, which means that, you establish that ground game against the Raiders, who do struggle against the run, and all of a sudden, Drew Lock really doesn't have to do that much. On the other hand, Drew Lock also does have some random games at times where he actually plays good. I mean, heck, against Cincinnati last week, if Drew Lock doesn't fumble the ball in the red zone, they get a touchdown, Denver probably wins that game. So, I mean, if Lock would have won it, I don't think people would be hating on him as much right now of the fact that, Lock's starting, because he really didn't play bad last week. Yeah, it wasn't great, but it was not bad. So with the Broncos, I just think they're a better team overall right now. Their defense is certainly better. Their ground game, it goes in favor for them, obviously, against the Raiders, who struggle against the run. And Drew Lock does have those random games. And even then, he might not even have to do much at all. Just because the Raiders have been so bad recently. Yeah, the Broncos haven't been great either. I'm going to take the Broncos in this game, though. Neither one's going to make the playoffs, let's be honest. But, I do think the Broncos outplay the Raiders in this one. Then we've got the Steelers in Kansas City, and Steelers pulled off another win. They pulled off another win against the Titans, and I mean they're a team that they can play some good ball. Again, they're not going to make any noise. Their offense just isn't good enough for that. But their defense is really good, and their offense can get things going enough to take advantage of that defense, how good that defense can play. Against a team like the Chiefs, that's just not how you're going to win. You're not going to beat the Chiefs like that unless you're absolutely dominating on defense, like, say, say, like the Saints last week. I don't think the Steelers' defense is quite on that level this year. Chiefs, they've been rolling. I think it'll be a close, good game. It should be a fun game. I think even with the injuries, the Chiefs still pull this one out, and that's mainly why it's a close game, because of injuries, but Chiefs pull this one out. Then on Sunday night, we have Washington in Dallas, and I picked Washington for the upset last time they played, and they almost did it. I mean, it was a one-score game. It was a good game. But here in Dallas, Washington's not looked the same the last couple weeks. Dallas has looked pretty good the last couple weeks. It's just a pretty clear gap of talent right now, and just who's in a position to be making a playoff run, who's not. Washington just doesn't have an incentive to win, so I'm going to go with Dallas in this one, in a decent game, I guess, but still winning pretty easily. And then last for my Monday Night Football game, 2 7-7 teams here with the Dolphins and the Saints. This is tough because, I mean, obviously the Saints just beat the Buccaneers, right? Why would they then go and lose to the Dolphins? Well, mainly, I think the reason is because if you look at a team like the Saints, who, by the way, has Ian Book starting this week, they're a team that, because their offense has sucked so much this year, they've relied heavily on their defense. And it's gotten them a few wins. I mean, they just beat the Buccaneers because they shut him out. They gave Tom Brady, I think, only a second shutout of his career. They have some very great games, and I mean, your offense really doesn't have to do much, when your defense is playing that well. I don't think they play that same level. The defensive performance that Dennis Allen had his defense do, which, by the way, should be a top coaching candidate by this point now, but the performance that they gave really is just one of those rare, absolutely dominating performances that I just don't think you're going to get against a team like the Dolphins, because they know what their identity on offense is. They know how to use their guys. They know how Tua works. They know what they can do despite not having weapons or an offensive line or a running back, which is part of the reason why I think Tua is super underrated as well. Get that man some weapons and he'll be an elite quarterback. But you're just not going to have that same type of a game against a team like the Dolphins, because even though their offense is much simpler than the Buccaneers, that's exactly why it's going to work for them. And if you look at it from a standpoint of the Saints offense versus the Dolphins defense has been great recently. The Saints have Ian Book starting, passing to Kevin Hogan. That's not winning you a game against a Dolphins team that, yeah, they're not great, but they just don't mess up, and they're a good, solid football team to where I think it's enough to win against a team like the Saints. So I will take the Dolphins in an upset here. Not the most confident take, because there are certainly those weeks where the Saints can come out and put up 30-plus points, but I do have the Dolphins pulling off the upset. But that is going to be my Week 16 predictions for the 2021 NFL season. If you guys like the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Got some cool content coming soon. Redrafts, looking back on previous drafts. I've also got positional rankings coming very soon, mock drafts. If you guys got any content that you want to see, let me know. And maybe the coolest video, looking at this year's offseason, specifically quarterback related, could be a pretty big offseason. So if you don't want to miss that, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.